It's up on Facebook right now. D, it's up on Facebook right now.
Are we?
Mm-hmm.
It's on yours?
Yep.
Maybe I have to exit out and come back in. I don't see it yet. I'm still waiting for Tavares to give me the countdown.
I've been sending the messages with the countdown.
You sending the messages, I don't see the messages. So we ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, well, I do not see it on Facebook, but it's okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dwayne Bryant, and tonight is another Conversations with DB. Tonight, I have an amazing, awesome, and powerful young man. His name is Jefferson Noel. He's a young Haitian-American community educator born and raised in Miami, Florida. At 18 years old, he opened his first storefront business entitled Noel's Healthy Living. He has written numerous online articles and published 2 books. The first one, Powerful Presenting, How to Overcome the Nation's Greatest Fear. His second book, and he's only 25 years old, is called Go, How to Cross the Starting Line, not the finish line, but the starting line. Jefferson founded Barbershop Speaks, where he engaged in intelligent discussions inside of barbershops and beauty salons, trying to understand what's going on in the community to keep a pulse on the community. He empowers the community with his engagements. He has been featured on WSVN, NPR, WLRN, Miami Sun-Times, and several other newspapers, as well as award-winning shows. Numerous awards for his leadership he has received. He graduated from Florida International University, Paul's Up, FIU, with a bachelor's in communication and a master's in global strategic communication with a certificate in conflict resolution. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight it is my pleasure to welcome Jefferson Noel. Where are you, brother Noel?
What's going on, King?
Oh, how you doing, sir?
Man, I am great. I'm doing great, my brother. I'm doing phenomenal. How are you feeling?
Hey, man, I'm doing really well. Listen, I've been so excited to interview and to talk to you. We talk all the time, but I want the world to know you. First of all, you are only 25 years old. How have you accomplished so much in such a short period of time?
I'll be honest. Sometimes I feel like I haven't accomplished enough because my standards are so high for what I actually want to achieve in life. Mm-hmm. Like I remember a couple years ago, like probably when I started around 19, 20 years old, at the end of every single year, I would create like my goals for the next year. And every single year I put that I want to make at least 6 figures, I've been doing that since about 2012, 2013. And guess what? I have not reached that goal yet. So I'm like, I don't care what I accomplished. I don't care what people think I did. I don't care how many accolades people think I have. Because I haven't reached 6 figures, I feel like there's so much more. But I do aim really high. I do aim high. You know, as they say, shoot for the moon. And if you miss, at least you would land amongst the stars.
But let me ask you this question. You mentioned 6 figures. Do you mean 6 figures a week, 6 figures a month? Because it's a relative term. What is 6 figures? What do you mean 6 figures?
I did mean 6 figures a year.
Oh, see, I thought you were already there, my brother. But see, it's okay. You are absolutely going to get there. See, I thought for sure you were talking about 6 figures a week.
One day soon. That's for 2023. That's my LeBron year goal.
Got you. So listen, you have the name Jefferson Noel. That's a very different name for a black man. So where does that name come from? Tell me about your name.
So the Noel part came from obviously my father, but he's Haitian. And growing up, I didn't really know that as a Haitian last name. But when people hear it, they're like, oh, that name sounds French or that name sounds like, foreign. I'm like, really? You really think so? And so, but because I grew around people in my culture, so we never really spoke about my last name. But my father is Haitian, my mother is Haitian, and my parents, they tell me that the reason why they named me Jefferson is because of Thomas Jefferson. I'm like, y'all just saying that. Like, y'all y'all just saying that. There's no way y'all planned it out. So,
right.
Yeah.
So you're named after Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, because apparently they wanted me to be president of something. So,
hey, and you already have, because I was looking at the things you've done at FIU. You are very active on campus. So how were you able to do so much as a student at FIU, as well as keep your grades up and write a book?
It was hard. And who told you my grades were up? Like,
well, I just assume. I mean, you don't have a bachelor's degree. You got a master's degree. So if your grades are not up, I don't know why you're going for a master's.
I'm trying to figure out who's feeding you that information.
I'm on the alumni board. I get information.
Honestly, my grades have been good. I'm actually impressed by them. But the reason why I was able to do that is because I only spend time doing things that I love. So I'm not the type of person who likes to go out and party and spend time on South Beach until 3 a.m., 4 a.m. And if my friends were to invite me, I'll give them a 2-worded answer, which is N-O.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of my time where college students would be out having fun and partying and drinking and doing all the other things. I used that extra time to like really write and really sort of pursue the things that I want to see in my life. So I never had a short-term mindset. I was never looking at what the next yard would look like, but I was always looking for the touchdown. I was always looking down the field. I'm not like Tom Brady, who's trying to nickel and dime people. Tom Brady, people think he's the best, but honestly don't like Tom Brady, and I don't like the fact that he's
you throwing some shade, man.
That's shade. But I'm more like Peyton Manning, who can see down the field, who has QB vision, that can, read defenses and make decisions based off of those defenses. And so I was always looking long term.
Okay, got you. Now, what I want to do, because it's easy, right now I'm thinking about my young people who can look at you and say, man, this guy's successful. He's graduated college. He's written books. I mean, he's a university professor. I mean, you're doing a lot of amazing things. But I want to talk about Jefferson the boy. Let's go back to about maybe 3rd, 4th grade. What kind of student were you? Were you always this focus and this ambition? Who were you like in 3rd, 4th grade? Who was Jefferson Noel?
Well, I didn't know you would ask this. And if I did, I would have told you to move back to 2nd grade.
Let's go to 2nd.
So 2nd grade, I was attending a school called Grandy Elementary. And I had this teacher who was evil. She was evil. Like, she used to call kids ugly. I'm like, how do you call elementary kids ugly? Like, she used to put people in isolation. Like, that's normal, but like, she'll put you next to her desk. But it wasn't torture because you're in isolation. It was torture because her breath didn't smell good. So I was that student. I was always next to her desk. And apparently, I was so bad that they actually kicked me out of elementary school.
What?
Yes. And apparently that doesn't happen often, but I was kicked out of elementary
school.
And I was forced to go to another school, Hubert O. Sibley Middle School. And
okay, so time out. Why were you such a bad student?
Because of
or should I say misbehaved?
It was Miss Munch's fault. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, I feel like I had a lot of energy, and I didn't know how to express that energy. And I always wanted to be funny. Like, I think at the time I was.
So you wanted to be the class clown?
Let's not say class clown. Let's say class comedian.
Okay.
And I am pretty funny, so a lot of the kids, they were laughing at my jokes, and as they continue to laugh, you get more emboldened. So now I'm throwing papers at the teacher.
Oh, no.
I was acting up, man.
Okay, so no wonder, 1, you had to sit by the teacher. 2, you got your behind put out of school. Now, what did your parents say when you had to go home? Because I'm sure you had disciplinary reports. What were your parents saying?
Oh, my parents, they're like very strict on education. So I think they always had a little hope that I would get better, but they were always trying to direct me in the right path of saying, you have to value education. You have to value your schoolwork. You have to actually go and learn. Like, my parents, they didn't have the mindset of, we're going to send you to school, and then, like, what if you got a C, as long as you pass the class, you're good. Like, they did not have that mindset. Like, they viewed every C as an F. They viewed every C as a D. in every A, as in why don't you have an A plus? And I'm like, mommy, like they don't really put A pluses on these report cards. Like, it's just, hey, no, we want to see an A plus. So that's the type of parents they were. And my brother, who you recently you recently met through email, my brother, he was like straight A student, like from elementary school to now. Like he's always been an academic.
And did he just get his PhD?
No, he just got his MBA.
MBA, okay. Out of Chicago. He was
always academic in the family, so he raised the bar super high. Yeah. So they're like, if David could get straight A's, and why are you getting C's? Like, why do you have B's and C's and sometimes D's? You know, and so they were always trying to set me on the right path.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's interesting you say that, because when I went to college at FIU, honestly, the Haitian students were some of the smartest students on campus. Because my first semester, I was jiving around, but my grades, because I was on academic scholarship, they told me, yo, you got one semester to get this up. And I literally stopped hanging out with certain groups of people, and I started hanging out with the Haitian people. And my grades went straight up because they were serious. They were in the libraries, they were studying. So what is it about the Haitian culture? Because honestly, people who don't know the Haitian culture, they may have just negative stereotypes of things they've seen or heard. But the reality is, and even personal experience with the Haitian culture, you guys are disciplined, you are hardworking, personalities are great and things of that nature. So what is it about the Haitian culture that instills that high level for education?
They see education as the key, and mostly they see education as something that's accessible to everyone, because every elementary school or every student, every young person is mandated to go to school. But back in their country, like if you meet any Haitian, they will tell you that their parents had to walk 10 miles to go to school. Like for whatever reason,
in the snow in Haiti.
Every single parent that I met, they said they had to walk 10 miles to go to school. They only had one pair of shoes and one pencil for the entire year. I'm like, how you only have one pencil for the entire year? There's no way that's true. And so when they come over here and they see how accessible schools are, they have that higher expectation, because they say, if I was in your shoes, if I didn't have to walk 10 miles, which I'm sure they didn't have to walk 10 miles.
They may have, maybe.
They must be building schools around where people live.
Hey, like, man, I don't know.
I know. But they see like, hey, it's only a couple blocks. Hey, you have 2 pair of shoes, you have a book bag, you have all these things, and so we have higher expectations to you for you because you have access to opportunities that we didn't have, and so they see themselves in us, and so they want to elevate us to the level where they feel we can reach.
Nice, very nice, very nice. So let me ask you this question: how did you come about writing and publishing books? Because I know people literally, I have friends who've been writing books for 3 years, 4 years, still have not gotten the freaking book written. You're 25 years old, you've already written 2 books. What was the motivation behind your first book? And then what was the motivation behind your second book?
So the first book, and I'll answer that question by sort of give you more of the timeline of where I went from that second grade life to where I was when I first started writing the book. So I actually didn't take education seriously until I got to FIU.
Really?
Because, yeah.
Like not even in high school?
Not even in high school. Like
what was your high school GPA, like your cumulative?
My cumulative non-weighted was like 2.6, 2.7. Yeah, like it was like a 2.7.
What?
But I was taking honors classes, so I would get those extra points if I had a B or an A.
Which makes it even worse if you had a 2.7 in an honors class.
My weighted GPA was like 3.4, 3.4. So I'll tell my parents the weighted, not the unweighted. But like even in high school, like my entire senior year of high school, I did not apply for college. Like I wasn't someone who was anxious and hot booty, let's say, to apply for college. Like all my friends were like, I'm going here, I'm going there. I never did it until the very last day of school. The very last day of school, I went to school just to, hang out and do whatever people do. And there was an announcement on the loudspeaker. I remember I was in Mr. Kishman's class, and there was an announcement on the loudspeaker, and they said, if you're interested in going to college, Miami-Dade College is accepting people. all you need is your name, your email, and a signature. And I was like, I got a name, I got an email, and I can make up a signature. So that's the only reason why I initially entered into college, was because that process was so easy. So it actually wasn't until I got to FIU that I became really serious about buckling down and finishing my education.
So I'm gonna have to call Dr. Rosenberg. He's my friend. I got him on my speed dial. That means we just let anybody at FIU. 2.6.
No.
What?
Listen, so I went to Miami-Dade College. I dropped out of Miami-Dade College. So I'm actually a college dropout. And then, long story short, we have to have a second interview to go through my life. But long story short, I ended up going to Valencia College in Orlando.
Oh yeah, Orlando, absolutely. I know Valencia Community College.
So it took me 2 years I took 1 year in Miami-Dade College, dropped out, and then it took me 2 years to finish that associate's degree. And then because of the program from a college to a university, 4-year university, I was able to automatically get into FIU. But if it wasn't for that program that made
because I was like
taking me.
Absolutely, because I promise you, I'm sitting there like, what? No, straight out of high school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what's interesting to your question about writing the book, what's interesting is while I was at Miami-Dade College, I was sitting in a psychology class. And the teacher, she invited a friend of hers, his name was Roots, and he did a presentation. And after the presentation, he was asking us to purchase his books. And then he stopped the show and he was like, wait, if you don't want to purchase my books, then purchase the books of my son. And I was like, your son?
Wow.
And he had a son who was my age, who already wrote a couple of books. I'm like, this is what people are doing out here? Like this is what young black boys are doing, they're writing books?
So okay, wait, time out. This is interesting. Yeah. So you're saying for you to truly activate your superpowers and to really elevate who you were as a human being, as well as a black man, you needed to see it being done. And once you saw it being done, that automatically activated your competitive gene.
Exactly. Because up until that point, I never would have thought that someone who looks like me, someone who's my age, can write a book. Like it blew my mind away. I was like, what? Like people in their early 20s are writing books? Like who's out here doing that? I'm like, all right, that's what the competition is that if that's what people are doing, then I have to join. I have to be a part of that. And so that was the first time I had the seed to actually start writing, and indeed I actually did start writing a book. But as anyone who wrote a book before knows, the first book that you start writing, that's not the book that you finish. So I started writing a whole bunch of different books, and I have it in my Google Docs now. And I never really finished one until 2017, where I finished writing a book. I was getting ready to publish it. But then that's around the time where I started doing a lot more public speaking. And so people kept messaging me asking how can they be more effective public speakers? And I was like, there seems to be a demand on how to speak well in public. And so I scrapped the first book that I already finished writing. And so I wrote the book, which is now my first published book, Powerful Presenting, How to Overcome One of the Nation's Greatest Fears, to help people write their first book.
Interesting. So before you continue, if anyone is watching on any of the live feeds, if you have a question, just go right in and type it up, because what I'm doing is I'm talking to Jefferson here, but I got my phone right here. So I'm looking at the questions coming in. I see a few people are watching, a few people are sharing. So if anyone has a question, please type in your question right there on the live feed. I'll take a look at it and then I'll ask Jefferson himself. So that is very interesting. So one book was not enough. After you wrote the first book, why that topic? Because yes, people say the number one fear in America is the fear of public speaking. Most people would rather not do it, and it literally causes them to shake, tremble, and things of that nature. Why did you decide to tackle that book and that topic?
Because public speaking was a fear of mine. And the book is interesting because a lot of what I'm writing and a lot of what I do now, I didn't think I was able to do it because of my insecurities. So I always had insecurities about my grammar. I always had insecurities about the fact that I stutter, and the fact that sometimes I'm trying to say 1965 and I say 1865. And I'm like, damn, like if I go on stage and people hear me, they'll be like, man, this man is not educated. And wow, this man, like he's stuttering too much, like he's just not effective. And so I saw how I built confidence over time. And a lot of that is because I went to Toastmasters, and I was going to Toastmasters every single week for 2 years.
Really?
Yeah, every week for 2 years.
So you were going to Toastmasters to learn how to speak and to overcome your fears. So I just heard a second thing. One, you have to be able to see someone looks like you doing what it is you want to do, get that courage to know that you can do it yourself. Number two, you got to move past your fear and surround yourself or do the thing that you're afraid of doing in order to overcome that fear and become great. Okay, this is a great lesson. Okay, keep going.
Let me add another lesson on top of that. So the Toastmasters that I went to, so when I moved to Orlando, that's when I decided I'll start going to Toastmasters. And for those of you who don't know, Toastmasters is an international organization that helps people with public speaking. But I went to a lot of different Toastmasters clubs to see which one was the right fit.
And they're not all equal.
Exactly. But here's the thing. I went to a lot of clubs with people who look like me. I went to a lot of clubs with people who were my same age. I went to clubs that were large and clubs that were small. So the Toastmasters club that I decided to join was a Toastmasters club with baby boomers who were all white. So every single Wednesday at 6 p.m., I was at Toastmasters with people who fought in the Vietnam War, with people who worked at NASA, with people who had all these other different careers, with people who did real estate. And all of these people, none of them looked like me. All of them were older than me. And so I put myself in a position so I can challenge myself, so I can be around those individuals and get to learn their culture and for them to get to learn my culture. And so I put myself in a very unique position because after I was there for like 6 months, 7 months, they got comfortable with me and they started getting, very transparent, honest, especially during the evaluations. And that really helped me grow. It really, really helped me grow to become the speaker that I am today.
So I want to talk a little bit more about that. So you're in Toastmasters with your peers, people who look like you. Why did you say that's not where I want to be?
Because I felt like a lot of them, we already have a lot of the same shared experiences. And they were, a lot of those students, they were at Toastmasters simply because they would get, a credit for going to that class. So people at UCF, some teachers would say you have to join an organization in order to get credit for classes. So they didn't really have the expertise and passion to even be in Toastmasters. But the people at the one that I eventually went to, which is called Electric Toasters, like none of them had to be there. Like all of them, they were there out of their own will. And most of them were in Toastmasters for at least 20 to 30 years.
Wow.
So they had tons of experience.
Yeah.
They had the passion and drive to be there.
So how did they accept you? Here's this young Black boy, like a whole different generation. Sometimes older people don't like younger people. Sometimes older people don't have the patience and the tolerance for younger people. So how was that transition? Did you feel welcome? Did you have to prove yourself? Did you feel unwelcome in the beginning and then welcome? How was that whole transition? Because that's a huge culture shock. Uh-oh, you froze. You froze up. Did you hear my question?
I did not hear your question.
Okay, yeah, because when I saw you go. So the question was, here it is, a young Black boy who was comfortable in another place. How was it going to this other group, older white folk, baby boomers, not much in common, or did you have a lot in common? Was it culture shock? How was the transition?
I feel like I do very well with adjusting to new situations. So the transition wasn't rough. Transition wasn't rough for me at all. I think at least for them, they didn't really let me feel as though, or they didn't make me feel like I was an outsider. Like they actually were very welcoming. Maybe people would classify them as the woke folk. They were actually pretty welcoming. And so they didn't make me feel uncomfortable with where I was, and they didn't let my skin color or my youth be a big issue. Although they did refer to me as young all the time, but that's just a baby boomer thing, right? Yeah. But I do very well with adjusting to new situations. I watch the way people speak. I watch the way people move. I watch the way people shake hands. I watch the way people make jokes with each other. And I can adjust in that situation where I can sort of acclimate to the culture that I'm in. So it wasn't too uncomfortable for me.
Interesting. So I'm here because we're going to shift there a little bit later on. So I'm hearing that there's power really in understanding other cultures and understanding other genders and understanding other ethnicities and other age demographics. There's power in that. So thank you. So we're starting to get some questions there. The first one comes from Isabel Molina. She says, "Hey, Jeff, I find you so endearing!" Exclamation. God bless you and keep directing our paths. Plus, you have a great mentor. So Isabel, she saw you last week, and then with I think the week before, and she was like, "Who is he?" I said, "First of all, Cougar, he's too young for you. So back up off Jeff." All right. So I know she's gonna say something to me on that. But here's another question from Dr. Janice Jackson out of Chicago, Illinois. She says, "Based upon your experiences, or based upon the experiences you described, what advice would you give to those coming after you, given this moment in time?"
And so I would go back to the word adjusting and pivoting. One of my mentors, you probably know him, Saifis Shuf. He is the vice president of engagement at FIU. He recommended a book to me called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah. And I read the book, and one of the main ideas that Yuval was getting across was the most important skill that you can have in the 21st century is the skill of adjusting. And I'm like, adjusting? He's like, well, he didn't speak back to me, but I'm like reading it like adjusting. Like, why is that the most important skill? And what Yuval was arguing was that during these times, during this technological revolution, during this mobile revolution, like back in the days, it would take 100 years to go from one way of living to another. But now things are rapidly happening.
Absolutely.
Internet revolution. In the 1990s, people were like, what's the internet? People were like, what's a smartphone? People are like, what's social media? And now things are our lifestyles are changing immediately. And now we see in 2020 how fast we have to adjust to a new world. Like if you are at a job and you're not technologically savvy, then you immediately lose value. If you can't adjust to technology, if you can't adjust to the different changes that's happening around you. And so we have to get comfortable with adjusting. We have to get comfortable with adapting to a new lifestyle. We can't be old bricks that can't move with time. And so we have to stay true to ourselves, of course, but we have to be able to adjust for the times.
So then let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. One, how did you pivot? Because COVID-19 was the first pandemic that we got hit with. And many people, millions across the country were infected. Millions maybe lost their lives. So how then do you adjust to something that's not calculated, not planned for, completely devastating? How do you make that adjustment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was watching what was happening in China since January. So since January, I saw that in China, they were trying to and they did it. They built a hospital in 10 days. And I'm like, y'all are trying to build a hospital in 10 days with 1,000 beds? I was like, something is happening over there. And so since January, I sort of had my eye watching what's happening with COVID-19. And so the adjustment period for me wasn't too bad because I was paying attention.
Interesting.
And I knew something was on the horizon. But
so whereas America was saying nothing is happening, it's not going to be a problem. Why were you even looking at China? Because most people your age, they're not looking at international news. I'm assuming they're watching reality TV.
It was clearly a problem. It was I have friends of diverse groups, and so one of my friends, she's very interested in science, and she's very interested in diseases. So she was already sending me things like, "Hey, there's something happening over there." But I think what interested me the most, what I was most interested in was the hospital thing. Like I was like, "Can you build a hospital in 10 days here in the United States?" Like so I was very interested in that part. And then I was learning about how fast the disease spread. So it wasn't because, I'm someone who's, who cares deeply about science and I'm studying, international relations, but it was actually very interesting to me. And so I actually bought hand sanitizer in January. I didn't clear the shelves, but I bought a big bottle. I bought a big bottle. Different things like that. I have like sanitation wipes and stuff like that. So it wasn't that rough of a transition because I sort of saw it. Obviously,
because you were prepared. You were prepared.
But I didn't know more than Dr. Fauci. I didn't know more than Trump. I didn't know more than all those people. But I saw something happening. But
what did you do then? So you got prepared. So now you're prepared, but you really didn't know what was coming. So COVID-19 hit. Did you lose your job? Did your friends lose your jobs? Did you have anyone infected with the coronavirus? Did anyone die? How did you pivot? How did you maintain your level of forward thinkingness, your level of productivity?
So thankfully, I didn't lose my job, and I'm extremely grateful for that. Like I seriously, I thank God every single day that I didn't lose my job. So for those of you who do not know, I'm actually a professor at Florida Memorial University, South Florida's only HBCU. And during that transition,
of which Netflix just committed $120 million to HBCU, which is not to change subject, but I'm wondering. I know reparations is coming. It cannot not come. It is coming. So I'm wondering, are corporations going to be the ones to lead the charge? So we're gonna come right back to the other question, but what do you think about that? $120 million to HBCUs from Netflix.
Yeah, we have to be grateful for donations like that because no one is holding a gun to his head to actually do it. So I'm grateful for it. But what I care most about is the system, the systems that keep us oppressed in the first place. I want to see those things change. Okay. So I'm grateful for what Netflix is doing. I'm grateful for how Target is raising the minimum wage from $13 to $15. I'm grateful for all those changes. What I care most about is the laws being changed. Because Dr. King, what he was fighting for, he wasn't necessarily fighting for us to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Like he was fighting for laws to get changed because what he would say is, when you change laws, you change behaviors. And when you change behavior, you begin to change the mentality of people. And so that's what I care the most about. And I'm actually happy that we're actually seeing changes on that front.
So you know what, let's go there because I know your time is limited. COVID, first pandemic for the world. Second pandemic for African Americans or for Black people in America is the police brutality crisis. According to the AMA, the American Medical Association, according to the APA, the American Psychological Association, police brutality is affecting Black people's health. Police brutality is a costly measure that's been affecting American systems. So when you talk about change, first of all, let's go back to, a lot of people are like, why are they looting? Why are they protesting? First of all, why was it important to protest? And why was it important that the protest became violent? Because everyone is talking about peaceful protests. Colin Kaepernick showed us what that looked like. Why was it important for this change to have happened through violent protests? And do you think this change would have happened if the protests were peaceful?
Well, I would push back a little and say that the protesters didn't become violent, because right when it became violent, it no longer became a protest. It sort of became an outcry outside of peaceful protesters. So what I like what Sabrina Fulton says is, she says that protesters are protesting and looters are looting. And so there has to be—
He did say that.
Between the two. But believe it or not, although I am against violence and I'm against people I'm just against violence, period. But it seems as though violence has been effective. And although I'm not encouraging it and I never will, it's been effective, and people are realizing how angry you truly are. And I think there's a video by Denzel Washington where he's speaking about, if there's 100 sheep and there's a fox that's coming in and killing the sheep, and then so a leader in the sheep stands up and say, the next time that fox comes, we're going to kill that fox. He's like, is that a leader of sheep preaching violence, or is it just protecting themselves? Right? Rhetorical question, because we all know those sheep are just protecting themselves, right? And so we have to understand, and people who are watching.
That's a powerful statement right there that Denzel just made. That could go a lot of ways.
It could go a lot of ways. And so we have to sort of listen to the message. And I think if we listen to the message first, then it wouldn't get to the point of physical violence. Like if our government were to hear the outcries since Rodney King, since over 30 years ago.
Do you think, as a millennial, do you think the government has been listening? Do you think the systems have been listening to the pains and the outcry of Black people?
I think they're listening now.
No, do you think they were listening before this George Floyd?
I know under President Obama, he made a lot of changes. He put together a council to study racial division, especially as it relates to law enforcement and the Black community. So he's been implementing changes. When President Trump came, he scaled back some of the changes that Obama was pushing forward. So I think that there has been changes coming, but it hasn't come as rapidly as is coming now, simply because of what's going on in the streets of America. And so Absolutely. I feel like they've been dragging their feet, similar to how, the government and, politicians, they begin to listen about AR. People shouldn't have AR-15s unless they're going to war. They don't really speak about it unless there's a school shooting, which happen almost every single day.
Yeah.
But it's only when the cases make national news, that's when there's a national conversation around it. And so that's been the same thing with racism and police brutality. Is the same thing with police brutality, where they wouldn't listen until a major case broke out. And that's what's happening now. They're finally starting to listen, and they're finally starting to see that these people are serious. They are tired. They are tired of being brutalized on the streets. They are tired of having fear come over them whenever they see law enforcement. They're just tired of it, and they want to see change.
So let me ask you this question. Do you think the systems are changing? Because when I'm talking, it's rapid change. New York mayor just said the $6 billion budget that the police department has, he's going to start scaling that back and look at how to invest in communities. President Trump just signed a new police accountability executive order. Minneapolis governor and mayor, they're totally talking about defunding and disbanding the Minneapolis Police Department. There's other police departments around the country that's doing the same thing. I've talked to a couple of different cities that are looking at the police unions, which really is the part of the biggest problem, because they do whatever it takes to shield their police officers, no accountability for their police officers, keep them on the force even after they've killed someone. Do you think that those changes are happening now because Black people are tired, or do you think those changes are really happening now because white people are saying, you know what, this is some BS and it's gone too long, and the white youth, your age, people, your generation, are really the ones who are out on the street leading this cause? Because my generation, we kind of honestly and above, we kind of like, well, we tried it, it didn't work. So, but it's your generation that's leading the charge. But unlike previous protests, this thing is different. It's like some cities I've been to, it's majority white people out there with Black Lives Matter signs, and we're not going to take it. So what do you think the change is this time? Because this is very different than the other ones.
It's very different. And I think the way that George Floyd died, the way that he was murdered, it really woke a lot of people up. So one of my good friends, and I hope he allows me to say this, but his parents are racist. Like, they are like full-throated racist. Many people's parents are racist if they tell the truth. Yeah, and so I remember having a conversation with him, and he's one of my good friends, and I'm like, I'm curious to know, like, what do your parents feel about what happened to George Floyd? And he told me they feel like Chauvin should be in jail. And I was like, really? What? They
Even the
like
racist
officers should be in jail? Yes.
Usually white folk are pro law and order. What did he do? Why didn't he comply? And so you're saying your friend, who you're friends with, parents are racist, which makes me wonder, how did he become your friend? So they weren't really good racists. They were not good racists at all, because they would not have let his behind be friends with your Black self. But anyway, so these racists thought the police officer should be in jail.
Yeah. And I was very shocked. And he was like, yeah, like the video was brutal. And I'm like, if his parents If his parents, who watch Fox News all day, who watch Fox News all day, and if his parents feel as though the officer should be in jail, that means this video is a lot worse than even I saw it. Mm-hmm. Because if that video could pierce the heart of someone who openly hates Black people, then it's a powerful video. And that means that even the folk who are white, who know racism is wrong, who know police brutality is wrong, but they don't really speak about it. That means when they saw that video, they said, I have to start moving my hands and feet, and I have to start using my social capital in order for these things to not take place again. And so I think, yes.
Interesting. So here's what's interesting. Maybe about 5 years ago, the University of Chicago did a study where they asked Blacks, whites, Hispanics, a lot of different questions regarding law enforcement. And it's almost like 75 to 80% of Black people felt as though the police were heavy-handed in the Black community. The police were overly aggressive in the Black community. The police were easier to kill Blacks than whites. And literally almost like 45% of whites agreed with that. So that means that just 5 years ago, the majority of white people still thought that it's really not a problem with the police, it's the problem with the Black community. So I want to give you some data based on what you just said. There is a poll that came out by Statista. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And in this poll, hold on, I just had it, let me pull it up. It stated that a similar question was asked. Americans recognize systematic policing issues. Adults who say George Floyd killings is part of a broader problem and treatment of African Americans. Black people, 94% agreed that the police brutality is a systemic part of America. This time, 75% of Hispanics and 70% of whites. It almost went up 45 minus 70, whatever that number is. It's almost like went up 25 percentage points that white people now, because of George Floyd's murder, are saying, okay, enough is enough. 92% of Democrats believe police are heavy-handed with the African American, and 55% of Republicans, which before it was never that high. So what about George Floyd? Was it because he's George Floyd? Was it because he never resisted? Was it because he called for his mother? Something had to happen that triggered the consciousness of even racist white folk to say, this is enough.
If I could draw a parallel, there's been a lot of memes, and let me not say memes, but comparisons to the officer kneeling on George Floyd's neck and Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the national anthem. Yeah. And I think in some strange way, because of what Colin Kaepernick did and what he was fighting for, saying we have to put an end to police brutality, and people are finally starting to see, like, you can see the image, like it's so visual and the image is so powerful of people angry. Yeah. People angry at Colin Kaepernick for peacefully protesting.
Correct. And then peacefully protesting, angry at him. Some people wanted to kill him.
Exactly. And so some people have that visual and that anger that they felt of him peacefully protesting. And now they're seeing someone in the same exact position kneeling, but this time on someone's neck, doing exactly what Colin Kaepernick was kneeling for. So I think those two images, that juxtaposition, is really triggering a lot of people to say, maybe I was wrong.
So do you think white people, maybe for the first time, was able to see their hypocrisy, was able to see their just blatant unfairness, was able to see that maybe I am a part of the problem. Maybe I have racist views. I was talking to a neighbor today, and she was sharing some of her racist views that she didn't even realize she had until this situation came up. A lot of my Facebook friends, I got a lot of white supremacists on my page. I don't know why they like to hang out with me, but a lot of them really do. And one lady said, when he said, "Mama," she said, "I heard my son. And for the first time, I was able to see a Black man's pain, and it transcended race." So it was something about him calling his mother triggered things, but we know for a fact, and let me go back to the other question. Do you think it's because white people now are on the front line that things are changing so rapidly, as opposed to if it was just us saying Black Lives Matter? Because even 60 countries are protesting around the world?
Yeah, I wouldn't say white people for the first time are starting to wake up. I think we're starting to see a majority of white people wake up at the same time. I think even back in the 1960s, part of what Dr. King wanted to do was he wanted the world to see what was happening to Black people in order to awaken the consciousness of America.
The Selma March, yeah.
So he wanted the cameras to record the fire hoses being shot at children. He wanted the journalists to take pictures of the dogs chewing at the clothes of young Black men. So he wanted people to see that. So whenever there's a strong visual element, I think it gets more people rally and more people involved. It awakens the conscience of white people who are not as affected as Black people in this area. And so that's happening now. And so there's always, let's call it a remnant of folks who do not look like us, who are fighting with us. But then when you have something like what happened to George Floyd happen, and you could sort of see what people are arguing on display in front of you, it begins to wake people up and say, this is a problem, and I have to fight for this.
Absolutely. And that's the only way it's going to change. When Americans say, listen, we're not Black American, we're not white American, we are American, and it's not Black against white, it's wrong versus right, then we'll be able to see the things change. Now, someone just chimed in, Saif Ashuf, is that your mentor?
That is my mentor.
Well, listen, he said, well said, Jefferson Noel. So he is definitely cheering for you right now, my brother. So listen, I know you got to get ready to transition. And man, it's almost like we're just getting into the meat of it. So a few other questions. So where do we go from here? Where does the nation go from here? Because clearly the nation has the attention of the lawmakers. The lawmakers are the people who set the policies in place. The lawmakers determine what's going on with these police unions. Where do we go from here? Is it just a moment because the coronavirus has had us all cooped up and now we just want to be outside? Or is it this is real change that's going to affect the systems that have been oppressing, suppressing, and depressing Black people for 400 years?
Well, my deepest prayer is that it's not only that it doesn't remain during a moment. Like, that's my deepest prayer. I don't want this to be a moment for everyone. I want this to become a movement. I want this to become a lifestyle. Like, no one thinks that if there was someone who was, driving and hitting, running people over every single day, like, we're only going to fight for a moment. And then after the next day, if he's still running people over, we're like, well, we already had that moment. Like, no one thinks like that. But it's only when it comes to these systemic issues that we begin to think that we can only solve it by arguing and fighting and protesting for a moment. So my hope is that this becomes a lifestyle, that whenever we see injustice, that we continue to fight for it. And everyone does not have to be an activist. And that's the thing, everyone doesn't have to be an activist. There's people who do this 24/7. There's people with social organizations that if you contribute to them financially, they have lawyers and they have people who are lobbying politicians. They have people that are pressing the needle every single day. And so we have to find our place in society where we can contribute, in a real way. So like with me, I have something called Barbershop Speaks, where we engage in intelligent discussions inside barbershops and beauty salons. We've been doing this since 2016, and we bring in community leaders, we bring in politicians, we brought in judges, and we have intentional conversations about these different issues inside barbershops. And so that's part of my contribution to society. That's part of my contribution to the movement. But everyone does not need to start Barbershop Speaks. Someone can come to a Barbershop Speaks and be a part of that dialogue and then take that conversation and bring it to their friends. Some people can join the Black Student Union at their college or university and see how they can contribute and help out with events. So we have to find ways to assist in any way. We have to find ways that we can contribute and don't only make it a movement and instead make it a lifestyle. And although
you're saying then that everyone can contribute to something.
Everyone can contribute. Exactly. And although I have the meeting at 7, I want to push it. I want to push this conversation to 6:58.
All right, hey, let's go, man. Hey, let's take 60 seconds in every minute. So listen, I know Dr. Rosenberg at FIU He's also making it a lifestyle where he's just challenged Eldridge Moss, who we were just on the panel the other day, Pagina, to say, listen, what is going on and what can we do at the university? Because I sit on the alumni board of directors, and one thing, we had a provost meeting and they were talking about the highest achiever at FIU in terms of graduating on time and graduating early, which was Asian females, and the lowest achiever at FIU, meaning halfway not graduating on time. And guess what demographic it was?
Us.
Black males, absolutely. And I asked 4 years ago, what are we doing about it? And it was like, nobody was really doing anything about it. So I think now people are really starting to say, hey, we got to take this seriously, because if we're not looking out for the least of these, then we're really not doing a service for the majority of these. So my next question to you, a few bad apples. Do you think some people are saying, hey, it's not really a problem? More Black people kill Black people than police ever kill Black people. So it's just a few bad apples. What do you think about that few bad apples theory?
Oh, well, because you mentioned President Rosenberg, I do have to give him a shout out.
Absolutely.
I really love President Rosenberg. He texted me last week and he was like, hey, Jeff, are you okay? How's everything going?
Nice.
And he texted me to figure out where's my mental state, and offering his help to see how he could help me during this trying times. So nice. I appreciate President Rosenberg because he cares deeply about not only students, but also alumni as well. And so I love what he's doing at FIU, and I'm constantly retweeting what FIU is sharing. And so to the question of, a few bad apples, as Chris Rock said, some jobs you're not allowed to have bad apples. Like if you're a pilot, you're not allowed to, you're not allowed to have bad pilots, who's crashing into mountains. If you're fueling the plane, you're not allowed to be a bad apple. And instead of putting, airplane fuel, you put in car fuel. Like there's some jobs that if you are a bad apple, then you are extremely dangerous to the order of society. And so it's incumbent upon the good cops to call out the bad cops. If you are a good cop and you're not calling out bad cops, then you are a bad cop. You have to understand that.
Wait a minute. You just said, if you are the good cop, but your bad brother in blue or sister is doing illegal things, excessive use of force, and just really violating people's constitutional rights, and you don't say anything, even if it's your superior, you are a bad cop. Did you just say that?
I did just say that, right? Like if I'm a professor, if I know another professor who's not teaching, who's constantly berating their students, right? If I know another
human trafficking their kids.
Yeah, and I don't say anything because I'm a good professor. I'm not doing that, but they are. Then am I really a good professor? Am I even a good person? No. No.
Whoa. Okay, now I'm going to share some stuff. I'm getting ready to share some stuff with you. I want you to check it out real quick. I'm actually working on a presentation because I'm getting ready to do a lot of engagements with law enforcement and community. Can you see my screen right now?
I can see it.
Okay, so this goes to the topic that you just mentioned, but check this out. When we talk about a few bad cops, groups most likely to be killed by law enforcement. Hold on a second. I don't want this one. I want the next one. Boom, here we go. In 44 states, according to the USA Today, obtained records that more than 30,000, that's not a few bad cops, more than 30,000 law enforcement officers who lost their certification. In about a third of the cases, states would not provide specific reasons. Here's the breakdowns for the reasons they document. So in 33% of the cases, states would not tell you why this person lost their certification. Drug and alcohol. So we have people around the country saying, what can we do? The first thing we got to do is police accountability. How do you have police officers that's not passing freaking drug and alcohol tests? So then when you shoot somebody, it should be mandatory drug and alcohol testing within the first 8 hours, not giving you 2 or 3 days. The second one, assault and violence, 3254. The third one is other. What in the hell is other? Dishonesty, 2777. So that's what you just said, that if you got this many police officers lying on police reports, dishonesty, theft, misconduct, prison, sexual misconduct. The majority of women being sexually abused by police officers are Black and Hispanic women, followed by Asian women. So how is it even possible with these kind of stats? And I'm telling you, man, I'm doing so much research. We getting ready to pull the covers off of this thing that's going on. Police misconduct is a pandemic, and it affects all communities. So when we're talking about defunding police and people are saying, no, that's terrible, there's been direct relationships with police misconduct, with mental well-being, with physical well-being, with psychological and emotional well-being of a community. When there's police violence and police brutality, it's destroying the moral fabric of the communities, which making them do some of the things that they do. So it's absolutely crucial that we have to really focus on policing, because there's another big thing about that too. Poor policing is very costly. Police lawsuits have cost over $1.8 billion. So this is a problem. So how do we, I appreciate what you said about the bad apples. So what do the good cops do in order to make sure that their reputation stay clean and clear?
Here's the thing. The answer is simple. They have to do their job, because what are they? Law enforcers. So isn't it strange that the only people they enforce the law against are people who are not law enforcers? So law enforcers have to enforce the law when it comes to other law enforcers. And that's simply in their job description. It's that simple.
So you're saying law enforcement, just do your job. Your job is not excessive use of force. Your job is not profiling. Your job is not sexual assaulting anybody. Your job is not harassing anybody. Just do your mofo job. And if you can't do that, then do what many other police officers are doing right now, resigning and quitting. Because some officers did not join the force to do their job. According to the FBI, many law enforcement officers are members of the KKK, neo-Nazi organization, white supremacist organizations. So when they join the police departments, it is absolutely going to be havoc in those communities. So then how do you police that? How do you police their racist mentalities and implicit bias? How do you police that?
Well, I believe in training. I know a lot of people are speaking against, they're saying, hey, all these trainings that these officers are doing, like, is not helping. But I do strongly believe in training. And so I would say they have to call someone like you, Dwayne Bryant. They have to call someone like you and
listen, man, I am on it. I wish I can tell you who I met with last week. Oh, well, you already know, but I can't tell you. Yeah.
So, but more so than that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So that, they have to have intentional conversations with the people that they're policing. So when I lived in Orlando, I did a lot of work with the Peace and Justice Institute that was founded by a wonderful lady. Her name is Dr. Rachel Allen. And she had something called Orlando Speaks, where they would bring in the chief of police, they would bring in the police officers, and they would also bring in the young Black men. They'll bring in community leaders, and they would sit down across from each other and have intentional conversations. They would say, someone like me, a young Black man, I'll say, hey, you know, the reason why I start laughing if you give me a direct order is because sometimes when I'm nervous, I start laughing. It's not because I'm disrespectful. It's not because I don't care. It's not because I'm trying to disobey an order. But whenever I get nervous, I start laughing. And so those conversations that you're having directly with officers help shift their mindset. And so they have to have intentional conversations with the people they are actually policing.
So it almost sounds like you're saying law enforcement have to humanize the community in which they're serving, because you said in which they're policing, but they should be serving also, not just policing, because we don't just need warriors in our community, we need guardians as well. And so if they see me as anything less than a human, then automatically, and there's been studies by Dr. Atiba Goff on that. Listen, man, we can keep on going, but I know you have a hard stop at 7 o'clock. Jefferson Noel, brother, I am a fan of yours. I am really proud of the work that you're doing. I'm literally twice your age. You're 25, and I am 50 years old on this planet. So it makes me feel great knowing that we got people like you who are taking up the mantle, who are doing the leadership, and just who's putting your life on the line. And you're a wonderful example of what a Black man is, as not just a Black man, but what a human being is. So I'm thankful for your life. Please tell your mama thank you for the last push. Please tell your daddy thank you for whooping your behind when he needed to, and just continue to do what you're doing. Last thing, the people who want to buy your books, the people who want to follow you, how do they do that?
Yeah, so and thank you, Dwayne. I appreciate you. I love you. You are my mentor.
Listen, I love you too. And Black men, we need to tell each other we love each other. We need to start smiling instead of walking around looking hard all the doggone time. I love you, brother.
I love you too, man. And listen, I'm gonna hit your 6 figures one day. I already know you far past 6 figures, so you're gonna teach me how to do it.
Yes, sir.
But you can find me on my Facebook is Jefferson Noel. You can find me there. If you want to follow content I post frequently, I'm on Instagram as Jeff Noel Speaks. The books that Dwayne Wade. I said Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade. Hey, I don't have his money yet.
Not yet. But my first book, Powerful, Presenting How to Overcome One of the Nation's Greatest Fears. It's on public speaking. Most people are terrified of the stage. At funerals, most people rather be in the casket than the ones giving the eulogy. And I think that's a problem, right? And so this book will help you solve that problem. You can find it on my website at jeffersonnoel.com. I repeat, jeffersonnoel.com.
JEFFERSONNOEL.com. Okay.
Yep. So my name right there at the bottom of the screen.
Yep.
Just put the 2 N's together and put a .com at the end, and that's my website. And then my second book, Go How to Cross the Starting Line. I wrote this book because most people, they never reach the finish line because they never start. As Dwayne said, some people, they wanted to write their first book for 30 years, but they never actually started it, right? And so this book will help you cross the starting line, so you can eventually reach the finish line. And so you can find
I got 3 ladies on here they asking me, I gotta ask you, is this brother married? Is he single? What's his story?
I'm not married, and I'm single like the last Pringle.
Single like the last Pringle. My brother, it's been an absolute honor. Thank you so very much. I appreciate your life, and have an amazing day. Whatever you got to do at 7 o'clock, be brilliant.
Thank you.
All right, we got to have you back.
You will. I'll be here.
All right. Have a great one.
All right.
All right. Peace.
Bye, Beatu. Bye, Tavares.
Yep. Thank you, Beatu and Tavares in the background. Thank you guys for all of the hard work that you're doing. I sincerely appreciate it. Next week, we're having Arena Haley from Spain. She's going to be coming on talking about, she's a high executive elite power coach. So she's going to be coming on next week. So stay tuned. As a matter of fact, we're going to have the week after Arena, we're going to have the Iron Man is going to be talking about what's going on now in the nation. The week after that, we're going to have Jocelyn Dumas, who's going to be here. Jocelyn Dumas is my friend in Ghana. I'm sorry. Jocelyn Jones, my friend in Chicago. And as a matter of fact, Dumas, if you're watching this from Ghana, I definitely want you to reach out to me so we can bring you on, because we want to hear from you as well. Jocelyn Dumas is going to be talking about grief. So join us in the next few weeks, conversation with DB. Every Wednesday, sometimes it's going to be 6 p.m. With Arena, we're going to have to go a little bit earlier because she's going to be live casting from Spain. So we definitely want to make sure we're mindful of that. Have a great evening, everybody. Take care. Be brilliant. Look out for each other. Love each other. And be what you've been destined to become. And that is absolutely amazing and great. Peace.